Hey, Read Through the Word. Today is January 19th, and today's lesson is called Why God? Why? And this is from Job, chapter 1, verse 9. Here we go. Satan replied to the Lord, "Yes, but Job has good reason to fear God. You've always put a wall of protection around him and his home and his property. You have made him prosper in everything he does. Look how rich he is. But reach out and take away everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." Okay, this is the question. This is the question that leads people to atheism. This is the question that leads to doubt. This is the question that leads to a misconception of who God is, of the central thing of the reason for evil and suffering. The book of Job, some of you who've been here for a while, remember I went through this maybe last year, of the whole overarching theme, and we'll discuss it through the book. Everybody thinks it's about patience and the patience of Job. It is not. It's about the sovereignty of God. And so we'll go through that. I'm asking you to dig in deep here. We've got some places that are hard to read in Scripture. The book of Job is hard. It's my husband's favorite book. He loves the book of Job. I have one of my students. He's a junior in high school this year, and he loves the book of Job. And so there are parts of the book that I love. There are parts that are hard. And that's okay. The Bible's not a book of rainbows and unicorns and everything perfect, because it's a story of humans that have fallen. But I'm telling you, okay, so this is what I need. And so listen. Here we go. Okay, there are parts that we're going to read that are going to be hard. We can do hard things. This is if you get your heart in this, in your mind, and realize that you can do hard things. I'm going to give you an example of this one today. So I've been working, hard to get healthy. Some of you who don't know that, this month has been 2 years since I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was not healthy at that point. And then I was halfway decent healthy. And then surgery and radiation and stress and all of these things, I ended up in a really not healthy place about a year ago. And I just finally, probably around May of 2023, I decided, hey, it was time to get healthy, because if cancer comes again or another sickness comes, I need to be healthy. I need to try to do some things. So today I was on my treadmill, and I decided I do this iFit thing. So whatever workout shows up is what I do. And I'm doing a trek hiking through the Alps, the Swiss Alps. The pictures are gorgeous. It's beautiful. I love the trainer. So he said, this is a recovery run. And I thought, oh, okay, we can do this, because I can jog, not flat out run, but I can jog for about 5 minutes. Well, then it pops up and it goes that I'm going to be running for 2.5 miles, 30 minutes. I've never run past 5 minutes in my life. And I went, oh no, there's no way I can do this. Well, Lord and I had a talk as we were running. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I did it. This time this morning, I thought I could have done that for nothing. Now, you're going to think you can't read the book of Job. You're going to think you can't read the book of Leviticus. I'm asking you, dig in deep and letting you know, yes, you can. We're here together to do this. We're here together to learn. And there's a purpose to every word in Scripture. We're going to be here together to do it. So, let's go. All right. So, the hard thing, so I thought, let's hit the hard stuff. Evil and suffering. What's the point of evil? I mean, when it comes down to it, this is the question of evil and suffering in the world. Here's the thing. Suffering is a global reality. There are world religions that will tell you suffering is not real. It is a state of your mind. If you can get to an upper consciousness and become one with the universe and experience nirvana, then suffering really doesn't exist because matter is not real. That's not true. It's not true. We live in a world that is full of natural evil. So because of the fall and all of these, and when sin enters the world, everything goes nuts. Natural evil would be diseases, disasters, and death. They've all entered the world. We live in a world full of moral evil. People kill each other. People do horrible things to each other. My husband just retired after 29 years in law enforcement. My son is in law enforcement for a year. Can I tell you, every day is a story of evil and suffering that people do to each other. All people experience suffering. There's not the idea that if you become a Christian, suffering ends. That's not true. That's not true. But here's the thing. Satan intends every type of suffering to take us down. That's why we read Scripture, because we need weapons to battle. Because suffering will try to take us down. I was never, the Lord took me through everything and my mind was full of Scripture, but I was not prepared for the trauma that suffering through cancer would do to me. I was not prepared for that. It shocked me. I still have a hard time of what that was like, what going through surgery was like, what going through radiation was like, and the mental suffering that occurs as well as physical suffering. And everybody has a story of some type of suffering. No one is immune. No one is immune. But what Satan intends to take us down with is God intends that every type of suffering to sanctify us. To sanctify us. There are so many lessons that I learned through all of my life, through different types of suffering I've gone through, and through everything. We need to remember the mystery of God's will, that God has allowed things for His purposes, but I want to show to you that the reason we go through suffering is ultimately for our good. Because if we understand God, there's the mystery means not like let's solve a mystery, but the tension between two ideas, that God is sovereign, yet we are still responsible, that God is in control, and we make choices. Because of that, the consequences of our choices for wrong lead to suffering. I always tell my students, I said, here's how this works. I said, someone has a choice. Unfortunately, someone makes the choice of drinking and driving. And when they do that, and if someone's killed, it's the consequences. So evil and suffering become because someone else made a choice. So you have that. Unfortunately, the consequences of sin fall on all of us around. But what we know that we need to see as we go into this book is that God is worthy of all glory in a world full of evil evil and suffering. Because the ultimate aim in suffering is to adore and exalt the glory of God. Because God is with us in our suffering. God is with us in our suffering. We are not alone. We do not have a God who does not understand. That's the importance of the incarnation. God became flesh and dwelt among us, and he suffered just like we did. Even more so. Even more. Because God is for us in our suffering. Suffering because of evil in the world. Suffering exists, and God uses it to sanctify us, to grow us so that we will glorify him. In order for us to see suffering for why it's here, we must see sin for what it is and see ourselves for who we are. We have a highly exalted view of ourselves and not a highly exalted view of God. We need to switch that. If we see ourselves through the lens of Scripture and what we have done to God, that is our first step in understanding suffering and understanding the exalting of God. I have this quote from David Platt that I really, really like. It says, the ultimate reason suffering exists is to exalt the glory of God's grace through the suffering of God's Son for the salvation of undeserving sinners. The reason we have suffering is God needed there to be suffering so that Jesus could suffer for us. Without suffering, there would be no cross. Without suffering, there would be no salvation. God saves us through his Son's suffering. If there were no suffering in the world, there would be no payment for our sin. To put suffering in its proper place and to understand. There's an idea, and it's called the best world possible. It's like I don't want to say a doctrine, a theory of the best world possible. It means that our world right now is, and David Platt says this one too, that our world is, to understand this, is that God is withholding 99% of the evil and suffering. We only see the evil and suffering that God allows. What is he holding back? Without suffering, there would be no salvation. So as we read through the book of Job, we need to understand suffering in its point, and we'll see that Job will finally understand at the end the point. That suffering exists for our ultimate good. We're looking at the cross. And for God's glory. No one but God can take evil and turn to good. So when we look at these types of things in our lives, always look how God uses things for our ultimate good and his glory. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.